I'm going to talk about the gray man theory for a shit hits the fan or a survival situation. Now, I don't know if it was on this channel or a different channel. I have two. Or if it was if it's still up or not. But I've already done a video talking about how the gray man is a horrible theory for self-defense. Okay, now I somewhat stand behind the gray man theory for certain shit hit the fan situations, but it is the wrong thing to apply. Allow me to explain. Okay, the reason why the gray man theory is wrong is because it invites criminals to target you. The gray man is better used for avoiding authority figures, even criminals who think they're authority figures, or their unwanted attention. The gray man theory was first publicized in a book called Invisible Resistance to Tyranny by Jefferson Mack. In the gray man theory, or in the book Invisible Resistance to Tyranny, Mr. Mack went about talking about how in the event of the government turning tyrannical, that you should, not actively resist the government, but you should protect your life and your family by going along to get along, by appearing non-threatening to the point of being a wimp, to being another one of the followers and preaching the propaganda, to taking the steps to, if you're a right-handed shooter, of always going to the leftmost lane to do your firing. That way, your face is hidden. You don't want to wear anything with any type of distinguishing patches or yada yada. Here's the thing about it. Those are all really good ideas for camouflage, but camouflage is a tactic. It's not a way of life. I think Mr. Mack is a moron, to be quite honest with you. And I think Invisible Resistance to Tyranny is pure trash in that regard of his suggestion of living a camouflaged lifestyle of hiding. Allow me to explain, okay? I was 11 Bravo. I was infantry. I was a soldier. All right? And I am a living, breathing human being like everyone else. I want to continue living and breathing for as long as I can. That being said, well, it's not how long you live. It's not the fact that you still are living years after other people are dead. It's simply a matter of what you are living for. You're not simply here to live and die and that's it. And the fact that we all die, no one gets out of life alive. At some point, we're all going to die. The question is whether we really ever lived. Think about it. If somebody would have stood up when the Nazis were on their rise to power and said this is wrong and confronted Hitler directly, one of the things that just blow my mind. I've been told this story a lot. I have a lot of Jewish friends, but I always hear the story about how these, and the numbers varied between 12 and 7, how these 7 old men in the Warsaw Ghetto held off the Waffen-SS, Nazi special ops, the Nazis' elite soldiers, for 2 weeks, armed with nothing but, small caliber handguns, 22s, and single shot 410 shotguns. Think about that. 7 guys against the German army. Held back German infantry, the Germans' elite soldiers, their SS, held them back for 2 weeks. With no supply, no weapons, no nothing. Just because they had the courage to stand up and do so. And in them, they were eventually killed, by the way. They died because the Nazis got tired of, dealing with these guys. So they went and used artillery and mortars and took out buildings and everything else to get these guys. Just brought the entire ghetto down to the foundation to get them. But think about it. even if there was 12, hell, let's just say there was 20. If you have 20 guys in a couple blocks of a street in uh, the ghetto, in the projects, in any sort of built up area, and they're using nothing but 22 pistols and 410 shotguns, and they're keeping the police out, they're keeping the military out, they're holding their ground so their family can get away, get the safety, and not be sent to concentration camps and everything else. And yeah, here's the thing about it. They died. But they died so that, their children, their grandchildren, their wives could live. They died so that the world could know that a few people with guts, with courage, with initiative. No, they couldn't have stopped the Nazi army, not the full force of the Nazi army, but they held their ground long enough to keep their families safe. And yeah, they died, but they were going to die anyways. We're all going to die anyways. But they died doing something great. They died standing there and taking the risk. If you want to play the gray man and go along to get along long enough for people to let their guard down around you, that's camouflage. That's cool. That's ambush tactics. But if you want to live that as a lifestyle of hiding and being camouflaged, it's not going to work. You're just going to make yourself a victim. And I'm going to explain to you why. I'm going to explain to you, point of dead of fact. And incidentally, a little secret for you guys, because of those few guys who held out, almost every single one of my Jewish friends, almost every single one of my Israeli friends who actually talk about it, because they will not really talk about this to anyone who is a non-Jew, they will tell you that, that you often hear from Jews about how they've added a new commandment to the Jewish law, which says never again will they allow a Holocaust to happen. Because of that, almost every Jewish person I know, almost every Israeli I know, but almost every Jewish person I know living in America or in another country, go out of their way to learn martial arts, military tactics, survival training, a whole bunch of stuff, even if they have to learn it on their own as kids, joining the Boy Scouts and doing paintball and reading manuals, because they will never, ever allow what happened with the Nazis to happen to them again. They will not simply stand down and bury their head in the sand and go along to get along. They'll die, but at least they'll die fighting, and they'll die in the belief that, they're going to die anyways. But whether you die an old man who regrets being a coward every moment of your life, or you die young standing up for what you believe in, all that matters really is what you believe in, and whether or not you're willing to live and die by what you believe in. And this is where you need to understand something. That ability to arm themselves, even mentally with training and everything else, is a huge difference in the way a lot of us see the world. If I've already done criminal profiles, I'm not even going to bother with criminal profiles. I'm going to break it down to 3 simple traits here, okay? Number 1, most criminals see violence as power and respect. If you want respect, you got to be able to go out and take it, not earn it. Take it. And you earn it by taking it, so either way it goes down taking it. That violence is a matter of survival of the fittest. If I'm bigger than you and stronger than you and I can take your shit, it's mine. If I have a gun and I'm willing to pull the trigger and I can come and take your shit, it's mine. Then you also have that fact that most criminals happen to have a psychopathic mindset, or psychopathic traits, what is considered by modern psychology now, because they've moved away from the word psychopath, to antisocial. When they talk about antisocial traits, they mean you lie, you steal, you cheat, you will use violence, all of that. So let's look at the gray man traits and see how that stacks up to the criminal profile. You don't want to draw attention to yourself, which means you go unnoticed. Most people around you don't see you. Cool. Here's the problem. If most people see you and don't notice you, don't remember you, that makes it easier for criminals to isolate you, to victimize you. Seen as non-threatening. Okay, remember when I said survival of the fittest, violence equals survival of the fittest? If I'm sure I'll take it away from you, then it's mine. If I'm strong enough to make you fear me, that equals respect to me. And power and respect are basically the same thing. Okay, here's the thing about it. If you're seen as non-threatening, you're an easy target. Think about it. Who would you rather victimize? The guy who you know carries a gun, who will put a bullet in your ass? Or the guy who looks like a tough guy, looks like he might be willing to throw up a fight? Or maybe, perchance, the little wimpy kid? Think about it. Who do bullies target? The wimpy kid. Who do they want to go after? The wimpy kid. Look, I'm 5'4". I've been short my entire life. Everything in school has always come down to dealing with bullies. Let me tell you what happens. See, most modern kids want to kill themselves because of bullies because they're taught to be weak. They're taught to be victims. They're taught that if you stand up and use violence, you're wrong. Screw that. If I ever have kids, I'm teaching my kids, you stand up. You draw that line in the sand and you stand up. If you got to cross it, you cross it. But don't start it. But don't let somebody else finish it. It's basically going to come down to this. You fight. If you don't fight, you're getting your ass whooped when you get home. Plain and simple. That's the way I was raised. So when I got bullied by kids bigger than me, I didn't run. I stood there and fought them. Sometimes I got my ass kicked. Sometimes I didn't. Hell, God, what was it? My sophomore year of high school, I beat up one of our defensive linemen on our football team that was like 6'6", 200 and some pounds. At the time I was 140. He hit me one time and went down to my knees. I mean, he literally just club hammered me and I went down. And then I had long hair at the time. He grabbed me by my hair and went to knee me in the face. And when he did, I caught his leg, started uppercutting him in the groin, slammed my elbow into the side of his knee. He went down. And when he went down and hit the concrete, I was standing up telling him to get the fuck up and fight me. He just laid there on the ground, freaked out. He started the whole thing. He punched me first. But the fact that I got went ahead and kept going instead of curling up into a little fetal position and saying, "Don't hit me," which was, what he expected, threw him off guard. You have to stand up for yourself. You can't sit there and play this go along to get along bullshit. It's better to blend in, to not be noticed, and then if you have to, go from there. That's called an ambush. Great tactic, by the way. Camouflage is a great tactic, but it should not be portrayed as a way of life. It should not be your only strategy. Which, to begin with, strategy involves settings of goals, and settings of goals to meet those goals, and goals to meet those other goals, which I'll probably do a video on that later. No idea? Strategy video. All right. Okay. The idea of seeming non-threatening. Okay, if you seem non-threatening, you're going to invite a criminal. And then you have to appear to be a follower. And look, like you don't want to be looked at as being a leader. Because, sometimes criminals will step up to somebody thinking, well, they want to be in charge and they want to be the leader, and I don't want that. And I want to be the leader, so I'm going to confront this guy because, it's all about who's bigger and stronger and blah, blah, blah. Okay, now, comparing those gray man traits, I'm going to throw up some profile traits from people who've been victimized. Okay, I'm actually going to put a screen up that compares all three for you here in a minute. For one, most victims tend to be respectful, kind, and kindness gets mistaken for weakness. I often heard this many times in the Army: do not mistake kindness for weakness. Because if you do, you get shown neither. What that generally means is that if you mistake my kindness for weakness, not only am I not going to be weak, I'm not going to be kind. So not only am I going to be an asshole in return, I'm going to be a brutal, vicious asshole in return. That means if you push me, I'm punching you. If you punch me, I'm breaking your leg. If you break my leg, I'm shooting you. If you shoot me, I'm taking out your family and you, just to make that point that I'm willing to go to the next larger level. And see, where most law-abiding citizens don't understand that progression to the point that, I just jump way ahead and end the whole thing from the beginning. They don't understand that. They try to de-escalate the situation or do what the other guy did in return. See, Christians get knocked on a lot because of that part of the Bible that says eye for an eye, tooth for a tooth. Eye for an eye and tooth for a tooth isn't saying to go out and get revenge. It's saying that if you have to get revenge, to do only to the other person what was done to you. Not what they did and then a little bit extra because of your injured pride or ego or whatever. If they put out your eye, put out their eye, but don't take it beyond that. If a person knocks out your tooth, then you respond by knocking out their tooth. You don't go about trying to cut their ears and nose off just to make the point because they knocked out your one little tooth. You just leave it to a certain extent. You don't go beyond what was done to you. Don't go beyond the crime that was done to you. Now, the typical profile of a victim, like I said, for one, they start mistaking that kindness for weakness. They leave themselves open to be manipulated and lied to and have things stolen from them because that kindness, that willingness to help other people and such gets seen as something to exploit, a psychological weakness. In ninjutsu, it's the psychological weakness of sympathy. Number two, they don't go noticed by other people. They tend to, most victims tend to keep their head down so other people don't see who they are. They tend to be quiet and not stand up so other people will notice them. And they don't want to volunteer ideas or make suggestions to be seen as leaders because, the cool kids always sit in the back of the class and joke amongst themselves and don't ever raise their hand to volunteer to answer a question for the teacher because, they're cool. In reality, they're falling into that whole little gray man thing because they're underachievers and don't know what the fuck they're doing. I used to sit in the back of the class with them, and I am an underachiever. I used to hate putting forth my best effort. I'd sit there, do my work, make good enough to make my grade, turn the fucking paper in, and that was it. Spend the rest of my time bullshitting with them, and I was seen as one of those cool kids, except I kept getting, I had this very uncool habit of making the honor roll. And then, we go into that fact that your victims are non-aggressive. They don't step up and assert themselves. So the idea of camouflaging yourself can create the issue of making yourself a target for criminals. Now, here's the thing about it. When you're talking about authority figures, the police, tyranny, Nazis, police state, martial law, situations like that, the gray man is great for keeping you unnoticed. For those of you, and I'm pretty sure since most of people are preppers out here that are watching this video, since most of you have watched Red Dawn, the new Red Dawn, you'll notice, if you pay attention, that a lot of what happened, a lot of the successes of the Wolverines, especially early on in the movie, were due to, blending in, were due to the use of camouflage. For example, the kid with the skateboard. Come up riding a skateboard, pretends to let the skateboard slip out from under him, slides under North Korean tank, and he takes off running. Oh, well, the girl in line, she tended to blend into part of the crowd, and then, I seem to have lost something, and then left. When they were getting ready to do the ambush on the little stadium where the North Koreans were setting up their little festival or award ceremony or whatever, two of them were sitting there blended into the crowd so that no one would notice them. And, as all that turns out, that's camouflage. That wasn't a lifestyle. That was camouflage used for a certain point. Guys in the Army dress up in camouflage uniforms. And it's not a collar pattern. It's, for the sake of fashion, it might be. Um, but you always see them in the camouflage uniforms, and you think that helps them to blend in, but they're all taught in basic training to put leaves and stuff like that in their the elastic bands of their helmets, the little slits in the camouflage cover that goes over top the K-pots. We're taught to put shrubbery and stuff in that, tie it into your LBV or LBE or Molly or whatever you got at the moment, so that you blend in more with the shrubbery and you fit in more and everything else. That's camouflage. That's not a way of life. Hiding is not a way of life. If shit hits the fan and your entire survival strategy is to lay there and hide by yourself and alone and, clinging to your gun and afraid that, somebody's going to come through that door, there's a problem. You don't want to stand out, but it's like this. If you have to get out of a city, especially for you city people, if you got to get out of the city and you got to slap that bob on, you're not going to be unnoticed. You're not going to be the gray man. You already stand out. You have supplies people are going to want to rush you. You have things that people can steal and take because you stand out. I mean, the guys who go all paramilitary, yeah, they might invite trouble from authority figures who will see them as someone trying to challenge them. But I promise you, a gangbanger with his little pissy-ass 9mm is not going to want to roll up on a guy or two or three guys in full battle rattle, military uniforms, carrying assault weapons, who aren't shooting them. Out on the street, there's two types of people. There's the punks who talk shit, and the guys who are the real deal. I don't really fit into either category. I'm kind of somewhere in the middle. These guys, the guys who are the real deal, you don't fuck with them. You know who they are, and you do not fuck with them. If you have any experience, any street smarts, you know who the guys are that you do not want to fuck with. The punks, you posture, you talk shit, they talk shit back. The guys who are a threat, the guys who will actually hurt you out there in the real world, you talk shit, they'll shoot you in the face. It's that simple. Sometimes, sometimes it's just safer to understand the difference between tactics and strategy. And even then, if you can't apply your tactics without understanding what your basic strategy is, you're hit.